how much time does it take for someone to get activated? Right? Like say I've joined, and maybe you can do cohorts of that. How many people? What percentage of people take action within 3 days of joining? Like 5 days of joining, 7 days of joining, and maybe some of them don't take much longer. So that gives you an idea of as you run initiatives, um, is it helping them get instant value, right? So I would say, yeah, the two metrics that Shalini mentioned, like activation rate, let's say in week one, the retention cohort over weeks, and just a view of the number of people who get activated in a certain time duration, like 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, and just have a histogram of that and see if that's evolving over time.
So I think what I'm hearing is every community should think of, let's say, what is the minimal aha moment, minimal value to sort of give that aha moment to the incoming member, so that they stay in the community. So like every
Yeah,
community
I
will
would
have
say
their own.
minimal and instant as much as possible. So
Yeah.
you want them to discover the aha moment as quickly as possible. So what is the best path to that, right? You need to figure out without as many friction points, like reduce friction points as much as possible.
Yeah. Fastest aha moment.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Welcome to another event at Community Hood. Let me very, very quickly introduce myself. I'm the founder and CEO of LikeMinds. LikeMinds is the software that powers Community Hood. We do these events every alternate week, where we sort of invite certain experts on certain topics to sort of share their experience and knowledge on those topics. And most of these topics are curated by other community builders who we speak to often. And without taking a lot of time, let me very, very quickly tell you about the topic. The topic is how do data driven decisions impact community building, specifically in terms of onboarding, retention, and churn management. So this is one thing that I've realized based on a lot of conversations is, I think as an industry, especially in Asia, we have not invested a lot on, like as community builders, not invested a lot on implementing data as core part of community building. Like we look at data on and off, but like I felt that this is a gap that is there, at least in this part of the world. But over time, the more community builders are getting matured, the more the industry is getting matured, the more the science of data is being sort of enabled through knowledge as well as tools. I think all of us are willing to adopt data as a practice to improve community outcomes. And that is the intent of today's webinar. I am very, very glad to sort of have two super awesome speakers for this event. Before I introduce the speakers, I want to just take a moment to also talk about myself for people who are joining probably for the first time. I'm the founder and CEO of LikeMinds. LikeMinds is essentially a plug and play infra for community building. We help companies to launch chat and community feed features within their existing apps in a few minutes. And Community Hood is essentially a non-profit initiative by us where we want to accumulate knowledge of community building. We have three pillars where we crowdsource challenges and we crowdsource knowledge and we document knowledge. Today's session is another way of doing that. So yeah, without further ado, let me very, very quickly introduce today's speakers. My first speaker is Pramod. Pramod is the co-founder and CEO of Threado. I am sure most of you would have already heard of Threado. It's one of the tools that I was talking about, because of which more community builders are becoming data practitioners. But more about Pramod. He comes with over 15 years of experience in marketing, user-led growth, community-led growth. Before Threado, he was part of early code leadership team of Zomato. So all the awesome community features that you see in Zomato were actually sort of marketed by Pramod. So he has very innate understanding of community building from that experience. And he led the user growth and marketing there for over 8 years. And before that, he was with Bain and Company for 3 years. I'm very, very excited about having this conversation with Pramod. This was due for a long time, and I think for this topic, at least I couldn't have found someone better than Pramod. So welcome, Pramod, for today's session.
Hey, thanks so much, Nipun. Hi, everyone. And thanks for the more than gracious introduction. Maybe I'll quickly introduce myself and Threado a bit, and then we can go forward. So my background, I think Nipun covered most of it, was largely around user growth, marketing, and I've always one philosophy that we've applied wherever, like the teams that I've sort of worked with, was focus always on organic ways of growing that are sustainable in the long run. So you build network effects over time, it compounds, and we a lot of the stuff that we did at Zomato, I mean, thanks to the amazing team there who I had a chance to work with. But it all focused on how can we add value to customers and how can we help them help other customers, right? So and that's where sort of community comes into play. So we had a very strong community playbook and content playbook as well, which we replicated across markets, and taking those learnings as what led to sort of forming Threado. And I started Threado over 3 years back, and today we are a platform that helps businesses service and support their customers wherever they are, like whether it be a Slack community, Discord server, maybe Discord's forum, right? And we work with a few companies, like just to name, like Notion, Mixpanel, Triple Whale, AWS. These are some of the fast-growing companies who also focus on providing an amazing experience for their users and customers, right? And we believe that if every company does that, helps their customers win and connect with each other and learn from each other, like businesses would grow sustainably, right? And that's our mission, is to help every business do that.
We talked about Threado, but I think Pramod, of course, is the founder, but I think a lot of part of growth of Threado came from someone else as well, and that someone else is with us today. So Shalini actually leads the growth at Threado. She comes with 13 years of experience of marketing and growth, and previously she was leading marketing for online ordering at Zomato, and worked with multiple startups before that. So this duo, was there not just in Threado's journey from day one, but even before that, they were together in Zomato for a lot of time. I will let Pramod and Shalini take over from here, and I think they've also created a small presentation which they would like to use while sort of sharing the insights with us. So over to you, Pramod and Shalini.
So the first and foremost thing that, in our interaction with any of the community builder has come out is, what are your goals for the community and how do you tie it back to your business? So be it a professional community or be it like a SaaS community, product community, or a learning edtech community, irrespective of what kind the community is, there are always goals which matter to the organization. And then how does that trickle down to your community goals? It might be things like, I want, let's say, 20% month-on-month growth in engagement, or I want just top of the funnel growth, which is probably look at 10% month-on-month growth in the number of new members we are adding. Or for some of these members, what's most important is how are you retaining your users in the community. So the first approach to understanding how your community functions or how you want to go into managing your community is set those one or two goals that matter to you. And one of the best outcomes that we've seen from someone who is a Series B plus SaaS company with about 100 plus employees based out of US is they tracked so they had a community for their product users, and then they tracked of the product users who joined their community and the ones who didn't. So there was a 5x increase in the duration in which they were retained as product users. So what I mean is the users who were a part of the community were 5 times more retained than the ones who weren't. So this means really even for the business, there is an understanding that the community is providing immense value, because of which the users are retained in the community. There's engagement, there's product support, and a lot to do with product support over here, or how the community manager has helped them find the right values out of the community.
Just adding on and taking one step back, I think. So we just to give context, like we've had over 800 organizations integrate Fredo, and these are usually businesses who have a community either on platforms like Slack, Discord, Discourse, and so on, right? And one thing stands out, and this has changed over the last 3 years or 4 years that we've been, there has been more focus on figuring out what is, I wouldn't call ROI, but essentially figuring out, okay, how does community make sense in the business context, right? And it's important. While obviously the intent for a community is not to as soon as a member enters, can we get them as a customer? Can we sell something to them? So that doesn't work usually. So your community is all about adding value and helping your customers or members connect with each other, learn, and so on. But it is important to link it to a business outcome, because the more you do that, it actually helps to grow the community and also put resources behind making community a core part of the business growth journey, right? And we've seen customers who do that really thrive and invest behind the community efforts, right? And a lot of it comes down to the community team, how they look at community initiatives and does it overlap with the business priorities, right? And data forms a core part of it, and which is the core of what Fredo does. So just throwing light on this example, right? The challenge was essentially how can the community team display impact around their initiatives that they're taking. So essentially every customer of this company would get invited into the community, right? And some of them would join, and they were doing a bunch of initiatives on the Slack community, and they wanted to prove that, hey, essentially by putting in more effort and getting more visibility for, let's say, join our community inside the product, how can we encourage our product team or the business decision team to take that call, right? And so the community team asked us if we can integrate community data with the CRM data to be able to see how are their customers who are engaged in community, is there a correlation between that and stickiness of customers, right? If you're able to prove that there's a linkage between, hey, I'm doing these initiatives to make customers more active in our community, and that's leading to them learning about our product more and becoming more stickier, then your lifetime value of the customer is also increasing, because they're coming back to the product more and getting educated about how to use it, right? And it's not just this one customer. Most of the customers that we speak who have this approach are able to prove that, or get basically buy-in for more resources to get the community going, right? So here, active users in the community were 5x more, spending 5x more time or retained within their product, and that helped them think through, okay, these initiatives the business team also understands that, okay, these initiatives matter. So let's get more and more customers into the community, because by doing that, that's a moat that is created around the product, right? So yeah, like just summarizing, like, from my point, I think it's important to understand what are the business KPIs, how can community play a role there, and third is to think from, like, for example, does the community help with getting you signals in terms of product feedback? Does it help you in driving product adoption, right? Are you able to drive more usage? There's a massive public company. I was speaking to the community director there. They measure like one user in the community, how many users did they bring into the community and into the product, and their focus is to educate customers about not just the tool, but how can they get better at what they do, right? And they sort of, their focus is to create more champions so they can go ahead and get in more people from their company. So I think it's important to understand what is that business goal and how can community play a role there, and then what data do you need to actually prove that it is working or not working, right? Over to you, Shalini. So I just wanted to set context around that.
Pramod, I have a follow-up.
Feel free to chime in. Yeah. So I don't want it to be just like a one-way thing. So, like, feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on this. I think this has been asked to some of the community builders who work with us internally. In such cases where the retention is higher for people who are part of community, one of the argument is what is the causal relationship, right? Like, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so it's not, I wouldn't say this caused that, like, but this is just an observation that there's a cohort. Maybe it's the other way around, like, people who are like more retained in your product are active in the community, right? So you'll have to dig further into it. I don't think you can literally say that, hey, this is leading to that. So which is why I think, like, you need to read data and also, like, be honest that, okay, this is not meaning that, if we do this, it leads to that. But it's just that cohort is very active. So the more, like, and we saw that, the more people were getting active in the community, they also were getting active in the product, right? So, but it's not a causal relationship. There could be other factors why, maybe it's, they're seeing the brand everywhere, every day, and that is making them more sticky, right? They're getting value from other parts, not just community. So it's not totally causal, but it plays a part.
Sure. Okay, let's move forward.
Cool. I think the first topic you want to cover is how do you look at a data-led approach to onboarding? Before we get into onboarding, just want to take a moment to understand, to explain what onboarding looks like. So one is when somebody joins the community, how do you welcome them? How do you create like a detailed environment where the community member feels safe and welcomed, so that they go and create engagement, or they look at, like learning more from the community. So unless that feeling safe environment is created by multiple interactions or creating touch points, probably even assigning a buddy system as a part of onboarding, until all of this is done, the member might feel really lost and overwhelmed in the, like the multitude of channels and the messages that are there in the community, and they might drop off, or rather they'll just stop engaging. And taking a step back, even before looking at onboarding, it is very important that the moment someone has joined the community, you understand the right user is joining the community. For this, the right approach would be on your, be it your website or any way that you're letting your members into the community, create a filter and only let the right persona into the community. Because if you just open up the community to anyone and you're letting in masses, it can be any number of people, but then you'll struggle with creating engagement or getting these dormant users to be activated or engage in the community, because they're not here for, what you are creating. So understanding what your community goals, defining what your community goals are, and then does that match with your members' goals, the reason why they want to join the community? Till that time that is in sync, you are onboarding the right members. And then once that problem is solved, what happens after onboarding is again understanding a little bit more if there are 3 or 4 key values that your community is providing, be it networking, be it some kind of resource, or be it product support. It's also important to understand why they joined the community, like for which of these values, and then go deeper into understanding how can that specific value be delivered more clearly to the member in their first, say, 2 or 3 weeks, so that they know this is what I came for and this is what I'm getting, so I'm going to stay here longer. So what we've realized is people who create very detailed and thoughtfully orchestrated journeys for members, in those communities, we've seen almost 85% members getting activated. And we're not talking about small communities. This can be communities with almost 10,000 members. This is a professional example of a well-known professional community where almost 85% of the members who join are activated. And the definition of activated is in their first 15 days, they are engaging either by posting or responding to some of the posts in the community. So this is a great example of how you've really made that user understand, like these are the key values that we deliver and this match your interest, and we are here to help you hit your goals through the community. And that is when they tend to stay longer.
Yeah. And just adding on to Shalini's point, so everyone must have heard of or at least experienced Lenny's newsletter and community, right? It's a massive Slack community with about 15,000 members, and I think we've seen that journey from when they were about 7,000. So they've been our customers for close to a year, or exactly a year now, right? So I think they had a different problem, which is as the community scales, how can you still provide a personalized experience for someone who's joining in and not because they have so much content that's being generated on a daily basis in the community, the user generated content. It can get overwhelming for someone who joins, and the problem then becomes that when that happens, usually members come in, they get overwhelmed and they'll not get activated, so they're just lying dormant. So there's a risk of it becoming a ghost town as you scale as well. So for them, it was important to really provide that bite-sized, personalized, welcoming experience, which helped people take the first action. And they were able to set up a 21-day drip campaign to help do that. One moved away from, let's say, a bot welcoming people into the community, right? And they saw an uplift of about anywhere between 2.5 to 3.5x in terms of activation rate from where they were earlier, right? And that matters because what we've seen is if you need to derive retention rate of people coming back to the community, the biggest factor that we've seen is the week one activation rate. And it applies to any product as well. So the moment somebody comes in and there are a set of actions that you want them to take, which will help them keep coming back or get instant value from the community, right? Maybe it's posting an introduction, maybe it's liking or sharing 3 most popular resources which they can find in the community so that they can go through them and maybe like them or so on. And the philosophy here is no different from what has been happening in products or startups, right? Facebook had this famous get to I think 7 friends, get a user who comes in to connect with 7 friends within a certain time duration, and that leads to a sticky user. The same principle applies here, and I think having a view of what is that activation rate. And how does it evolve? Week 1 activation rate, how many people are then coming back in week 2, week 3, and up to week 5 is very important to look at is your onboarding working? Do you need to change something? And make it slightly more data driven rather than just dropping a welcome message.
I think one of the sort of important question is, how do you define activation, right?
Yeah.
And how does that evolve across communities? Like in the example that you just highlighted, right? Like Facebook's activation was, how many people are reaching to that milestone of 10 friends in 7 days. In one of my previous example, when we were building Curify, like we had identified activation as people making 5 like doctors, like it was a doctor community platform, right? So doctors adding, let's say, their likes or marking helpful on at least 5 cases in first 7 days. So can you talk about some of these other examples on like how you've seen activation being defined across communities?
Yeah, it varies, and I think each community should think through what makes sense from the community and business objective standpoint. So, for example, and we've worked with, but also like being a part of Onboarding, right? And for them, like as a company member, what I experienced and what we saw was, obviously they start with a bang in terms of like kickoffs and their promise is connecting with like-minded peers, and for them the goal is, let's say, each person is able to connect with at least 3 people within the first week. So and they were very clear and setting that intention in their communication as well. So their kickoff meeting mentioned that they enabled breakout rooms in different formats, but they wanted also like 3 one-on-one connections to be done within the first week. So they encouraged everyone to like go ahead and interact with others. That would be totally different from, let's say, I'm just saying Lenny's community. It's more about getting value from what's already out there, how to navigate the community, right? And just post an introduction so that other people can start or just ask a question somewhere, right? Versus for a community around support, right? People, the main thing is, the goal there is, if let's say I'm using a product and I'm stuck somewhere, if I've posted a question, right, make it accessible for them to post questions. So we've seen a few businesses which bring community at the center, like inside the product. Whenever somebody is stuck, you post the question, and the goal is that the question is responded to within like a few minutes or like hours, and it does not stay longer, right? I'm taking Zomato's example. For us, it was can we basically help a user initially? It was explore at least 3 restaurants in every session they come, because the more they explore, then they see value and they keep coming back, right? And then it moved to if they can we get basically the percentage of users who are coming on the platform, what percentage of them are writing reviews, and if they've written a review, do they get a comment or a like almost immediately, right? So those are some metrics to see, because it has a huge impact on the retention rate of the users. Like they don't want to be in a black box. Like I've written a review, for example, and then I don't hear back from the platform at all. I probably will not come back to take the same effort. So that applies with every community in some form.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing is every community should think of, let's say, what is the minimal aha moment, minimal value to sort of give that aha moment to the incoming member, so that they stay in the community. So like every community,
I would say minimal and instant as much as possible. So you want them to discover the aha moment as quickly as possible. So what is the best path to that, right? You need to figure out without as many friction points, like reduce friction points as much as possible.
Yeah. fastest aha moment.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, let's move forward.
All right. So just following on the, like what you both were just discussing about the aha moment. So in case we are not on top of understanding how to monitor